Some people walk into a clean, spare room and feel their mind unclench. Others step into the same space and feel a quiet unease, as if something essential is missing. That contrast is the real entry point into minimalism. It is not just an aesthetic choice or a budgeting hack. It reflects how the brain processes cues, manages stress, and builds a sense of identity. The same pile of objects can signal freedom to one person and loss to another. So the question is psychological. What makes less feel like relief, and why does letting go feel threatening for others? For many people drawn to minimalism, self-worth is built less on what they own and more on what they live. Relationships, skills, travel, learning, and unhurried time become the markers of a meaningful life. Psychologically, that matters because possessions often serve as shortcuts to security or status. If buying can temporarily soothe anxiety or prove identity, then accumulating feels like protection. Minimalists tend to rely less on that loop. They are more likely to ask whether an object expands their life, not whether it signals success. Meanwhile, people who struggle to let go may be holding more than things. An old jacket, a shelf of souvenirs, or a stack of gadgets can function like evidence of who they were, what they survived, or what they hoped to become. Decluttering then feels less like tidying and more like erasing a chapter. Another force sits deeper in attention itself: need for cognitive closure. Some minds crave clear endings and stable categories, and clutter fights that preference. A crowded room does not register as neutral. Each visible item becomes a tiny open loop. Put me away, decide my purpose, remember where I belongs, deal with me later. The brain treats those loops like unfinished tasks, so the space quietly taxes working memory and raises background tension. People who lean minimalist often feel immediate relief when the number of open loops drops, because the environment stops asking questions. By contrast, someone with higher tolerance for ambiguity may coexist with more visual noise, or even find it comforting. And for people who feel emotionally attached to their things, decision-making itself becomes the stressor. Keeping everything delays closure, but it also avoids the discomfort of choosing, regretting, and redefining what enough means. Minimalism also tends to attract people with a more internal locus of control, the felt belief that life improves through choices and habits rather than through new purchases. When that belief is strong, buying is less seductive as a solution, because comfort and confidence come from action. Sleeping better, setting boundaries, practicing a craft, strengthening a relationship. Advertising and social pressure still exist, but they land with less force. The question becomes, what does this object actually support in my life, rather than, what will it say about me? On the other side, difficulty letting go can be tied to moments when control feels scarce. If work is unstable or identity is shaken, possessions can become a fast, tangible way to regain certainty. Holding on to things then functions like a private safety system. Decluttering is not just subtraction. It can feel like giving up armor, even if the armor is heavy. There is also a sensory dimension that people often mistake for mere preference. Some nervous systems are more sensitive to environmental stimulation, and a room filled with objects can become constant input. Even when you are not consciously thinking about it, the eyes keep scanning edges, colors, and categories, and the brain keeps filtering what matters. That filtering costs energy. For a stimulation-sensitive person, visual density can feel like cognitive static, and static can quietly trigger stress. Minimalism works like lowering the volume. Fewer objects mean fewer signals competing for attention, which can translate into slower breathing, steadier focus, and a deeper sense of calm. This is why minimalism often extends beyond the closet. It shows up in the calendar, the notifications, the commitments, even the way someone designs their evenings. Meanwhile, someone less sensitive may experience a fuller space, as warm, inspiring, and emotionally textured rather than overwhelming. A future-oriented mindset adds another layer. Before they buy, many minimalists mentally simulate consequences that other people treat as invisible. Not just the price today, but the cost of keeping, where it will live, how often it will be used, what maintenance it demands, what happens during the next move, and how it will be disposed of when it no longer fits. That long-range thinking interrupts impulse. The object has to earn its place in a life that is still unfolding. In contrast, people who struggle to let go are often pulled by immediate emotional value. A purchase can feel like comfort in the moment, and later the accumulated items become a museum of moods and memories. At that point, Letting go is not about storage. It is about confronting time and choosing what the future should carry. So minimalism is not a trend and not a moral badge, and it is rarely about deprivation. It tends to fit certain brains and certain seasons of life. People who feel lighter with fewer open loops, who regulate stress by reducing stimulation, who trust their agency more than the next purchase, and who measure wealth in lived experience. If you do not feel drawn to minimalism, that is not a personal failure. It may simply mean your needs for comfort, identity, and safety are organized differently. The real goal is self-knowledge, then designing a home and a life that support the way your mind actually works.